A master craftsman stands at the edge of a tiny island, watching the lights of the richest city in Europe glitter across the water. He can see Venice. He will never be allowed to live in it. He cannot sail for France, for England, for anywhere beyond the lagoon. Should he try, the Republic will not simply fine him or shame him. It will drag his wife and children into prison. And if that fails to bring him crawling home, it will send men with quiet instructions to find him, wherever he hides, and end his life. His crime would not be murder. It would not be treason in any way an ordinary person might recognize. His crime would be a recipe, one he carries nowhere but inside his own head. For almost 400 years, the most jealously guarded secret in Europe was not a weapon, a battle plan, or a route to some distant treasure. It was how to make glass. The handful of people who knew that secret spent their entire lives as something history has rarely seen since, half nobleman and half prisoner. This is the story of how a single craft turned one small island into a gilded cage, and how the theft of what those men knew set off a slow, poisoned war between two of the most powerful states on Earth. It begins with a law that looked, on its surface, like plain common sense. On the 8th of November, 1291, the Great Council of Venice handed down a decree. Every glass furnace in the city was to be torn out and rebuilt on Murano, a scatter of small islands out in the lagoon. The reason given sounded sensible enough. Venice was a city built largely of wood, packed tight and threaded with canals. Glass furnaces roared at well over 1,000 degrees, day and night. A single drifting spark could swallow a whole neighborhood in flames. Glassmaking here was already ancient. The first written record of a Venetian glassmaker, a fialario who shaped flasks and bottles, reaches all the way back to 982. By the time of the decree, the craft ran 3 centuries deep, woven into the city's pride and its purse. Fire, though, was only half the story, and the quieter half was the one that counted. By forcing every furnace onto a single island, ringed by water and easy to watch, Venice did something far shrewder than fire prevention. It gathered every man who understood fine glass into one place, then closed the lagoon around them like a wall. Not all historians accept the tidy fire explanation. Many argue the real aim was isolation, sealing the secret away from rival hands. And what a secret it guarded. Venetian glass outshone anything else in the known world, clearer and thinner and more delicate than the cloudy, bubbled stuff made elsewhere. Kings, cardinals, and emperors paid fortunes for it. So long as only Murano could produce it, Venice held an unbreakable monopoly, and that monopoly poured wealth into the Republic for the better part of 4 centuries. Guarding it was not vanity, it was survival. Here the tale takes its first strange turn. The men who held the secret were not chained like slaves or hidden away in disgrace. They were raised up like lords. A glass master of Murano could carry a sword through the streets, a right normally reserved for the nobility. He could marry into a noble family, and remarkably, his children kept that rank, something almost unthinkable for a craftsman's son in that age. The most celebrated families were eventually written into a special register, the Golden Book of Murano, a true aristocracy of the furnace. Tax breaks, legal protection, public honor. The glassmakers enjoyed comforts ordinary Venetians could only envy. So why, with all of that, would any of them ever dream of leaving? The answer is the second turn, and it runs cold. Every privilege came welded to a chain. The very laws that crowned a glassmaker as nobility forbade him, absolutely, from carrying his craft beyond the borders of the Republic. Slip away without permission, and the punishment was not exile or a fine. It was death. Teach the secret to a foreigner, and the sentence read exactly the same. The reward for mastering the most valuable knowledge in Europe was a whole life spent inside a beautiful prison, the open water forever glittering in view, the door forever, invisibly, bolted. For 2 centuries the cage held, and the secret stayed safe. Then, around the middle of the 1400s, a master named Angelo Barovia solved a problem that had beaten glassmakers everywhere. He discovered how to purge the cloudiness from molten glass and produce something never seen before, a glass so pure and colorless that it resembled rock crystal. They named it Cristallo. Onto that flawless surface, Murano's makers learned to lay a whisper-thin film of tin and mercury. With that, they created the first true mirror, a sheet that threw back a sharp, faithful, almost unsettling reflection. It is hard, now, to feel how strange that must have been. Before the Venetian mirror, most people had never clearly seen their own faces, only smeared shapes in polished metal or the dark surface of still water. Now, suddenly, a person looked back at them, Because Murano alone could make these risons, the price soared past all reason. A single fine glass could cost as much as a great painting fetches today. The court of Louis XIV would one day line an entire room for a royal mistress, with 144 of them. There was a dark price buried inside the work itself. The mercury that gave the mirrors their shine also seeped into the men who handled it, day after day, slowly poisoning their minds. Some turned erratic and trembling, prone to sudden fury. The English would later mock hatters wrecked by the same metal as mad. Murano had its own, quieter version of that madness, breathed in over the furnaces. This was no longer about elegant goblets. The mirror turned Venice's secret into the most profitable industrial process on the planet, and the Republic guarded it with matching ferocity. By now, the city held the perfect instrument for the job, the Council of Ten, its shadowy security and intelligence arm, threaded through with spies and secret trials. The procedure for a glassmaker who ran was chillingly exact. First came a courteous summons to return, refuse, and his relatives were seized and thrown into prison. And if even that failed to drag him back, the Republic was said to send men to make certain he would never teach another living soul. For generations, the machine ran smoothly. Then France decided it had filled Venice's coffers for long enough. By the mid-1600s, French gold was flooding east by the millions, year upon year, simply to buy Venetian mirrors. The man who controlled Louis XIV's finances, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, set out to stop the bleeding. In 1665, he founded a royal mirror works in Paris, the firm that would one day grow into the glass-making giant Saint-Gobain, and then he committed the unthinkable. He sent agents into Murano to smuggle the glassmakers out. At first, the plan worked beautifully. A master remembered as La Motta and two others slipped away to France for mountains of gold. More soon followed. They lit their furnaces in Paris and began turning out mirrors every bit as fine as those born in the lagoon. What followed reads like a thriller. Ambassadors traded veiled threats. Spies shadowed the workshops. Coded letters crossed the Alps. The struggle dragged on for the better part of 3 years. Venice answered exactly as its laws had always promised. The families left behind on Murano were threatened, hounded, locked away. Word reached Paris that the runaways had better come home, or else. And then, in the winter of 1667, one of the Murano masters in France abruptly died. Here is where legend and record begin to part, and the gap is worth pausing on. The version everyone loves to repeat is that Venice quietly poisoned its runaways one by one, that the council's assassins reached all the way into the heart of France. The documented truth is murkier. At least one account holds that the French ordered an autopsy on the dead master, and it found no trace of poison, only natural death. What is beyond doubt is that the survivors were convinced they were being hunted. Whether a blade or a vial ever truly found them, the terror alone did its work. Badly shaken, several crept back to Venice and begged the Republic for forgiveness. But Venice had already lost, and it never saw the blow coming. By the time the frightened men slunk home, the secret had escaped for good. The French had watched, copied, and then improved. They worked out how to pour molten glass across great iron tables and roll it flat, casting panels far larger than anything that could be blown by mouth on Murano. In 1684, they unveiled the result to the world, the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, 357 of them flinging back the light of 17 towering windows. It was never simply a room, it was a declaration to all of Europe that France no longer needed Venice for anything. The monopoly that had survived for nearly 400 years did not fall to an army or a siege. It fell to a few terrified craftsmen and the recipe they carried in their hands. So the next time you catch your own reflection, in a mirror so ordinary you barely notice it, is there, pause for a single heartbeat. The knowledge behind that glass was once worth a man's life. Behind it stand the masters of Murano, handed swords and noble brides, and a jeweled island in the sea, on one unbreakable condition, that they never, ever leave. Venice was hardly the only power that took a craft, a color, or a single small object and turned it into a matter of life and death. The strangest laws in history are almost never truly about the thing itself. They are about who is allowed to control it and what the powerful will do to anyone who dares to set it free. If buried history like this is what you are after, you already know what to do.